Hey everyone, it's Hannah. I wanted to quickly ask if you are enjoying the podcast, please leave us a 5-star review. It goes a long way in getting the show in front of other listeners. If you listen on a platform that doesn't do reviews, please follow us on social media, like the show, or leave a comment. Thank you. We love you guys, and we hope you enjoy the show. You're listening to The Tales We Tell, a podcast about spooky stories, unsolved mysteries, and local lore. I'm your host, Hannah Parch.
And I'm Katy.
Welcome back. Oh,
Today's a little unique.
it's a little weird.
It's actually Monday at 2:45.
It is strange. We've never done this before, except maybe during COVID, probably.
Yeah.
I don't know what our schedule was like then.
Or like maybe other random like holidays that you have like a work day off,
Yeah.
like Columbus Day or
Yeah.
Labor Day or something.
Yeah. Jarek's not even here.
Mm-hmm.
He's not even in the building, which I should probably warn him not to. I should probably put my phone on silent so he
I
doesn't.
think mine's on ring too, which never on
I
ring.
know. Oh, look, he already messaged me and I didn't even hear it. Yeah, we're recording in the middle of the day on a Monday because I got the sickness yesterday and texted Katy, hopefully not when you were on your way. Were you on your way?
I was like 2 blocks away.
So sorry.
I was like at that light right before, after I had almost hit a woman because it was dark and raining and a woman, and there was no one else coming. I was the only one driving. And for some reason, she thought that was a good time to start crossing the road in her all black jacket.
Oh, of course.
With no reflectors. So like I'm driving and I don't know if I looked over her or something, but basically I kind of looked, changed my view. Maybe I was checking my mirrors or something. When I looked back, there was a woman in the road and I had to slow way down.
Yikes.
Thankfully, I think I had just checked my mirrors.
Yeah.
Because I was like, I looked away, but I wasn't looking at my phone or anything like that. And that was actually like right after you had texted. Never mind. I was like, okay.
Sorry.
Got to a red light and I was like, no worries.
I was laying in bed for like probably an hour before you came over. I was like, first I was laying on the couch and then I moved to the bed and I was just like, I'm just going to wait it out and hopefully this nausea will just go away because I didn't know what it was. And I took like a Dramamine because I thought it was just like regular nausea. And then it was, you had already told me that you were going to leave soon. And then like right at the last minute, I was like, I can't do it. And so I texted you and I was like, can we do it tomorrow? And then I'm so glad I did because I told you later today, I was like, it just got progressively worse and turned into what I assume was food poisoning.
But you're all better today.
I feel great today.
And you took the day off just in case, but I was like, well, let's do it in the afternoon. So that I have the evening with my boys.
Yeah, and we're both fresh-faced and bushy-tailed. Is that how
I'm a little sweaty. I'm not very fresh-faced. I'm doing a whole bunch of housework. And
we're both drinking water today, so it's that kind of day. Anyways, I'm so excited for this episode. And like, when I tell you, okay, I know that you understand this. You know how you hyperfixate on something? And then you like...
Yes, I do.
And then you go down a whole bunch of rabbit holes, and then you talk about it so much that you're sure people are sick of you talking about it.
As someone with ADHD, yes, I know exactly what that's like.
Okay. Well, I'm excited because both of my parents and Jarek have now had to listen to me talk about this for the whole weekend, and I'm sure that they're sick of me talking about it.
And Jarek gets to they both get to listen to it again because I know your parents listen to the podcast.
Yep.
And Jarek obviously edits it.
Yes,
so.
they do. And I was finishing up the episode on Friday night when I was at my parents' house. They weren't there, but I had to finish getting my notes done. And as I was doing that, so then Saturday I was like, and then this thing happened, and then you won't even believe this. It's so unfair. And I think I told you this. This isn't even like the episode I thought I was going to do because it turned into a 2-parter And this is part 1, because this is the first rabbit hole that I went down that I was just like, this has to be.
You can't neglect this info.
No, this just has to be a whole episode. So before I get into that, I'm also holding Katy's dossier hostage because I'm so excited about it.
It's not even really like a part 1 so much as like a prequel.
Yes. I think this is like borderline becoming a personality trait of mine. I'm worried about it. But before I get into that, I have to do my announcement.
And you have one announcement that you didn't feel like writing down, so I'm doing my job and reminding you that it's related to last week's episode.
Yes, it has nothing to do with this week's episode. And I took a screenshot so I wouldn't forget. Okay, so we had a listener who messaged us on Instagram, and I tried to figure out her name based on her username. I don't know what it is, so whoever you are with your beautiful little family, I'm sorry, I can't figure out your name. But she messaged us, and she said, funny story, or not, my cousins are currently both police officers in Bath. They have a viral Bath Township Police Department Facebook page which one cousin runs. The other hot cop on the page that the ladies comment on is my other cousin.
I am looking them up because I've seen like some funny viral police department Facebook pages.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm wondering if the reason Bath doesn't sound familiar is because of that. I mean, I know there's also Bath, North Carolina and Bath, England, but
let me tell you, I follow our podcast Facebook page now follows this. It's Bath Township Police Department, Michigan.
Okay, found them.
To give everyone an idea of like just some of the content, one of my favorite ones, this is from August 28th. We are considering giving our officers tablets so at the conclusion of a traffic stop, we can awkwardly slide the screen your way and make eye contact with you while you choose how much of a tip you want to give us. The tip will be added to the cost of your citation for your convenience.
I just found one here. They shared a memory from 5 years ago. Mm-hmm. So this is what happened. This was the post from 5 years ago. Got dispatched to a noise complaint the other day. Turns out it was a bachelorette party. It took 8 full minutes to convince them I wasn't a stripper, and they actually did need to tone it down a bit.
Okay, and then I had to find the hot cop that she was talking about.
Mm-hmm. So that's what I'm looking for now.
Well, this is the post that I found.
Oh, yeah, that?
Yeah, he's good looking. Okay, the best part about this is the comments.
I think this might be the real hot cop.
Oh, I know, the puppy.
Mm-hmm. Officer Echo.
So, I guess these guys are brothers. I assume they're brothers or cousins. And one of them runs the Facebook page. And so he posted, you got to be careful when you're sending Snapchats to your coworker who also happens to be your brother and runs the Facebook page. And so the picture is a Snapchat of this guy. And it says, just around for 5 minutes with my overheads on. But the cop in the picture is a very attractive guy. There's 588 comments on it.
I gotta see the picture.
Oh, it's this one. I just showed you.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Never mind.
Okay, the top comment is the page. It says, I was trying to make fun of him, and instead I accidentally turned this page into a Tinder profile. Also, their grandma got on here and commented and said, both of these Bath cops are my grandsons. Both sweet and great cops. Now that statement should get my lawn mowed, weed whacked, and bushes trimmed, right?
This whole family's awesome.
I know.
They grow them funny up there in Bath, apparently.
I know. So anyways. Oh, also someone said, I just love I love the comments, and I love that this page got on here and replied to them. Someone said, don't even lie, like you weren't trying to make this a thirst trap to convince a bunch of women to try to get tickets in Bath Township. And they replied, entrapment! Oh my gosh.
Oh, thank you so much for bringing this to our attention.
I know. And I told her, I replied to her message and I was like, so yeah, I'm following this, and also our podcast page is now following this. And I thank you, because now I have something other than awfulness to associate with Bath, Michigan.
Good things happen there, too.
Yes. Like a hilarious police department Facebook page and at least one hot cop and a very good puppy that was posted about.
Maybe there's the hot brother and the funny brother.
Someone did comment that. They're like, at least now we know who the hot one is and who the funny one is. And I'm sure it's very awkward for our listener because she's like, they're my cousins. But whatever, you know.
I mean, you could say that someone's objectively attractive.
That's true.
Without being attracted to them.
That's true.
Like,
you have any hot cousins?
No.
I don't either.
I mean, they're not unattractive.
Well, yeah. I was trying to think.
I wouldn't put them on hot cop level, I don't think.
Yeah. I don't know if you just insulted all of your cousins. Do any of them listen?
No.
Probably not.
I don't any of them even know about my podcast.
That's probably true. Well, okay, now I'm thinking. My cousins aren't bad looking people. I had to think of who all of my... I have like 4 cousins, so...
I mean, they're... my whole family's very attractive.
Yeah.
But they're not like hot cop level.
Yeah,
that's all.
That cop was pretty hot, so...
Yeah.
That's also saying something for us.
Yeah.
Notoriously, people who don't hand out a lot of compliments to cops on this podcast.
Well, when they do dumb shit.
Well, yeah.
Like, not investigate people who are obviously shady.
That's true. Yeah.
Like, they need to be made fun of. They should be shamed.
Yeah.
But, like, it's not like we're going after cops specifically.
No.
We're going after dumb people
We're
doing
going after
dumb
bad
things.
Yeah, bad ones. Yeah. All right, you ready to hear what this episode is about?
Yeah.
All right, the next 2 episodes.
It's been quite the build-up.
I know. I hope I'm not going to let you down. This is going to be about Escape from Alcatraz.
I already know about this.
Oh my gosh.
No, I'm just kidding.
Good. Okay, well.
I wanted to really disappoint you for a second.
The reason I'm also withholding your dossier, I don't know if you are into this or know about how fucking incredibly amazing the mugshots from the 1930s and 1940s are. Mm-hmm. They are beautiful.
Yeah.
They are insanely beautiful. And that's what I have in this dossier for you. And that's why I'm holding on to it.
Very excited.
Okay, great.
Are you just going to give me like one picture at a time?
So there's a couple. So, okay. Next week is going to be, next week is like the successful escape and the conspiracy theories and all of that. That's what I was mainly, this episode was supposed to be, not this podcast. And I started looking into it and I was like, oh, I'll just like briefly touch on a couple like escape attempts. Couldn't do that. That escape attempts is what this first episode turned into. So I'm going to give you...
So again, it's a prequel.
It's a prequel, but also we'll just get into it. Okay. And I will give you... You'll be getting like groups of pictures as you need them. And like honestly,
just tell the story, man.
I'm just also letting you know, if next time you come in here there's some framed mugshots, just go with it because
I won't question it.
Okay. Okay, so they're gonna be within my viewing distance. They're not gonna be just saying. They're not gonna be like the Burning Man picture. Okay, so Alcatraz, maximum security prison on Alcatraz Island, hence the name. It's about 1.25 miles. I don't know why I wrote that weird. 1.25 miles off the coast of San Francisco, California. It was built between 1910 and 1912, originally as an army military prison.
It's as old as my house.
Is it? Mm-hmm. Nice. Probably also as haunted as your house.
No, my house isn't very haunted.
Yes, it is.
Probably not maximum security prison level haunted. Let's be real.
True. It's true.
Like, as far as I know, we didn't house like hundreds of violent criminals in my small house.
That's true.
Or not a small house.
Medium-sized house.
Yeah.
It was adapted as I wrote regular prison in 1934 because I assume that not a non-military prison is a regular prison, whatever. It's 3 stories with 4 main cell blocks, which are A through D. I'll have a map for you later to help clarify things. The cells typically are 9 by 5 by 7. So 7 feet tall and then 9 by 5, which is...
Like this size of like this area of our studio.
Yeah, very small. Mm-hmm. Inmates would get...
Probably size of most college dorms.
I know. Good grief. I know. Now that I'm thinking about my college dorms. Speaking of a college dorm, you would get a bed, a desk. Oh, sorry. It's out in the hallway because I had to measure something with it.
Well, I want to measure in here.
It's not... well, this is more than 9 feet, right? From here to there? Katie's going to walk it. Katie's got a ruler.
To the bookcase.
Okay. So the bookcase to there.
To the door.
To the door is 9
feet.
Okay. All right.
And then, yeah, from this wall to that wall is 5 feet.
Okay, wow.
So, like, it literally is our studio space.
That is very small.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So they...
So a bed and a desk, sorry.
Yep. So they get a bed, a desk, a sink, and a toilet.
Mm-hmm.
So we've got a desk, and then fit a bed, and a sink and a toilet, and that's all. That's all you get.
And how many prisoners to a cell?
1.
Okay.
Yeah, just the 1.
I didn't know if it was bunk beds.
No.
So yeah, this is actually not that small for one person.
Yeah.
It's when you share with somebody and there's nowhere to go to get any kind of, not just privacy, because there's no privacy in prison anyway, but like,
that's true.
Just, you're breathing too loud, like, go away.
Yeah, true. So, as you mentioned, it did house some of the most dangerous prisoners, but it also housed prisoners who had just escaped from other prisons, which I was kind of surprised. Like, when I was looking into the backgrounds of a lot of these prisoners, I was expecting them, like, mostly to be murderers. But, like, a lot of them were just, like, bank robbers. Which, like, I'm going to go ahead and say this now. Dad. I'm not condoning bank robbery. But bank robbery is different than murder. Mm-hmm. But, like, the thing about Alcatraz was, like, you weren't put there necessarily because you were dangerous. You were put there because you had escaped a bunch of other places, and Alcatraz was really secure.
And it's also probably just, you know, the local prison, too. Like, if you just happen to be, you know, arrested in San Francisco and you were being sent to prison.
Yeah, probably.
You'd probably be sent there.
Yeah.
So, like, I know it wasn't just violent criminals.
Yeah.
I just know that a lot of violent criminals were sent there.
Yes. It also gained a reputation as being notoriously tough, and prisoners would later report brutality and inhumane conditions, although a lot of them said that the poor treatment was more psychological than physical, which we'll get into. And there was also a lot of prisoner-on-prisoner violence.
I think that's pretty standard in most prisons, though,
yeah,
from my understanding. See, that's actually something that I could, like, really hyper-focus on. Mm-hmm. I'm really fascinated by the prison systems and, like, prison reform. And, like, it's, there's just so much that needs to be done. Like, it's an industry.
Katie, you're reading my mind.
Like, I've said this before. I know, like, we've talked about prisons before, about how frustrating they are to me. But, like, they're an industry. It's just they're not there to help.
You're the perfect person to do this episode with, because I cannot tell you how angry.
Because I already agree with you.
Yes, I can't tell you how angry I got, and like trying to explain how, when I'm already through all of this, to someone who just trying to, like, I can tell to you, like, by the end of this, I'm pro inmate and anti guard,
and I'll understand.
Yeah, like, you're not gonna look at me and be like, well, let's look at the facts. Okay, we will look at the facts, and then I'm still gonna feel that way. Anyways, also one of the bonus episodes I wanted to do is about like prisoner on prisoner violence, and like one of the inmates specifically, and oh my gosh, I'm gonna start a whole separate podcast that's just all about Alcatraz.
Like, I know everyone can already hear it, but Hannah is so fired up right now. She just changed her position in her chair. And this is not her usual seating position. I'm the one that has like 30 different seating positions per episode because I can't stay still. She can stay in one spot for the entire time. But right now, she's sitting in a way, like she's got one foot up and like kind of forward, like she is fired
I'm in
up.
my gargoyle seat. Okay, I'm going to talk about security at Alcatraz. So they had electromagnetic metal detectors. I didn't know it was a thing back in the day. They had them at the entrances of dining halls and workshops. They had remote-controlled tear gas canisters in the dining halls so that...
In case riots.
Yep, if riots broke out, they could just hit a button and tear gas everyone. They had gun galleries with machine guns that were like at the end of corridors, which is going to be a major key later. They had 25-foot barbed wire fences around the rec yard. They also had a policy that forks, knives, and spoons were counted after each meal to make sure that prisoners weren't taking them with them.
That's also why they've got the metal detectors.
True, yes. And then also they counted prisoners like approximately 13 times a day, sometimes more. So just a lot of stuff going on. Also because of the isolation of the prison with it being on an island, and the fact that the water temperatures in the San Francisco Bay could average 53 degrees,
Which is cold.
which is
water.
very cold. This is in the winter, but I kind of feel like that was, I feel like I read something that was like, not just in the winter, I think it was.
I feel like there's not that much of a temperature fluctuation out there anyway between winter and summer.
Yeah, maybe like winter, spring, autumn. Like maybe in the summer it was a little warmer, but I'm sure the water there doesn't get very warm. And also the currents could reach up to 6 knots, which is 7 miles an hour. So because of all these things, Alcatraz was largely considered to be escape-proof, which is why they're sending prisoners who had escaped from other places. Because it's like, if you can get out of the prison, you're still stuck on an island.
Yeah.
So, you know. Although I did read
You're free, but you're fucked.
Yeah. I did read something really funny, which I wish I had written down, which was when they had when they established it and they told the public, like, well, don't worry, this San Francisco Bay is like a natural barrier. So the public is protected against these like dangerous criminals. There was like a high school girls swim team or whatever. They were like, this isn't as big as a barrier as you think. And so like a high school girl like swam the length of it and like circled the island and like swam back and was like, yeah, it wasn't that hard to do. Yeah. And then like another girl did it and she was like, it's not that big of a, and like people, I mean, to be fair, people now swim it as like an athletic event. Not saying that it's easy. I certainly could not do it.
No, I've been swimming laps, not daily, but close to it, like recently. I still couldn't do it.
Yeah.
Like,
I mean,
maybe in a year.
Yeah. People who are in prison, it's not like they were getting, time at the pool to practice,
Right. Like, yeah, they might be able to work out in the yard or whatnot. Yeah. But, what's really the quality of the food and, like, what's their nutrition really like? And, you know.
So between 1934, when it was opened to non-military prisoners, and 1963, when it was officially shut down by RFK, 14 escape attempts were made by 34 different prisoners. And I'm going to tell you about a couple of them. I think this is the very first one.
So clearly a lot of them are escaping in groups. Yes,
lots of groups. So this first one was just a single guy. It's actually kind of sad. On April 27th of 1937, a guy named Joseph Bowers, he was doing his work detail, which was burning trash, which doesn't sound like the best work detail you could get. And he suddenly, in the middle of the day, just took off running and started climbing the fence. And guards obviously saw him and yelled at him to stop, and he didn't stop, and so they shot him. And he fell over 50 feet and died. And so
I thought you said they were 25-foot high fences.
I think he fell on the other side, and it was like maybe like on a bluff or a cliff or something.
Gotcha.
It was unclear like if the fall killed him or if the gunshot killed him. But also a lot of prisoners believe that he like wasn't mentally well and hadn't been trying to escape, but had been like chasing a piece of trash, and that the guards were just like kind of looking for an excuse and had said that they told him to. It's very unclear.
Made an example out of him, maybe.
Yeah, like
let's use this as a learning opportunity.
Yeah.
Fellow prisoners,
Yeah.
don't try to escape.
yeah.
Bang.
Yeah. But a lot of other people also thought that it was perhaps a deliberate suicide attempt because he had attempted that before while he was in prison. Because it was so terrible in there. Okay.
Another seat adjustment.
Moving along. All right. December 16th, 1937. The dossier opens. I'm on the wrong one.
Good thing you kept it then.
I know. Pause, please. Okay. Here's your first picture. Ted Cole and Ralph Rowe. I mean, like, we're just going to pause a minute and appreciate their mugshots. Like,
Ted's already got a split lip.
I know. Golly. Teddy. And just, like, the quality, like, who's lighting these? I was trying to explain to my dad, and he's like, you just think they're hot. And I was like, well, they are, but also, mugshots today...
They're both, like, well-detailed, but also kind of artistic. Like, that is super, like, angsty and artistic. Like, that belongs in an art gallery.
I know. Who's telling him to smirk in his pictures?
Oh, Ralphie.
But also, like, come on. Mugshots today are, like, overlit, washed out. Like, I don't know. They're just not good. These are truly works of art. I don't know how else to say it. Yeah, like.
There you go, Teddy. You and Ralphie sit right up
Please stay up there. Oh, nope, they're falling.
Like the previous guy.
Oh, no. Okay, so Ted and Ralph, they escaped by gradually filing through the bars of the mat shop window and just climbing out one day. I guess there was not... I'm not really sure how they were able to do that. The day they escaped was really foggy, and so the guard towers didn't see them when they were running across the yard. They get to the gate. They smashed the gate lock with a wrench that they had stolen. So, like, okay, on board. And then they jumped in the water, and they were never heard from again. So they were presumed drowned because of bad weather and strong tides. But their bodies were never found. But they were still listed as number 1 and number 2 on the FBI's most wanted. So I don't know.
We get to choose, and
to choose your own
say
adventure.
they made it and went into hiding.
Yeah, and truly, I should have looked up. I mean, because this is just a quick stop on our list, I didn't look and see what their crimes were. You can look them up. They could be the bad ones that murdered people. They could also just be bank robbers.
I don't know. Ted doesn't... I don't know. He looks like definitely like a tough guy. Like, gets into brawls often.
I can tell you in a second what he did. He's got a Wikipedia page.
Ralph looks more like a bank robber. He looks more like a thinker. Like a you know.
They were both convicted bank robbers.
Okay.
There you go.
So maybe he was the planner and he was the... I don't know.
Let's see.
Well, that doesn't necessarily mean they were robbing banks together. right? They just escaped together.
I think they were right. Well, that's true. Let's see. That's true. Yeah, no, I don't think they were.
Okay.
Anyways, sorry. They're on the short list, but they made it because of their hot mugshots. Okay. Our second one, April 14th of 1943. There you go. We have James Borman, Harold Best, Floyd Hamilton, and Fred Hunter. Again, just beautiful mugshots. So this group also escaped through the mat shop windows. I don't know why they're not like keeping an eye on these or making the bars better or not giving them access to files. But they got out that way. They had also stolen some army uniforms because I guess one of the work details that you could get was like cleaning army uniforms. So they took some of those and they were going to use them as flotation devices. I'm not really clear on that. I don't know. It was a plan. And it worked, I guess. So
sort of.
They get out. They overpowered 2 guards between the 4 of them. And they bound and gagged the guards. And then they climbed over the fence. And they got down to the water. One of the guards that they had bound was able to get his gag off. And he was able to blow his whistle. And that alerted the tower guards. Which I don't know how the tower guards didn't see all of this. But all 4 of the men were already in the water and they're swimming. Because I guess their plan was to swim. I don't know. Again, crazy plan.
With their uniform floats.
Yes, they have flotation devices, I guess. But now the tower guards are alerted. So the tower guards start shooting at them because they now see them. So Floyd Hamilton gets grazed by a bullet and his body goes under. And the guards are like, cool, we got him. James Borman gets hit, and Harold, who had been swimming next to him, grabs him by the belt and just starts like dragging him with him because no man left behind. We're all buddies. Almost immediately, guards show up on a boat and they grab Harold. And when they do, Harold lets go of James, and that's when he realizes that James had actually gotten hit in the head. And James's body sinks and is never recovered. Because why would you try to recover his body and treat him like a human? Fred was discovered by guards a short time later, hiding in a cave offshore. He had injured his back and his chest coming over the fence. Because it's barbed wire fence. I don't know how everyone isn't just like getting sliced up going over that thing. So he's injuring himself coming over the fence. And then he also, when they got over the fence, they had to like slide down a cliffside and he had like cut his hands up to doing that.
Probably don't want to go in the salt water with all those cuts.
Yes. So he had given up swimming like very quickly. And he was like, I'm just going to hide in this cave until it dies down. But the guards found him because there was like blood all over the rocks near the cave. So they get him. So they've got Fred and Harold. James, unfortunately, is dead. They get them back to the island, and the warden, whose name is James Johnston, announced that James Borman had died and that they were, quote, positive that Hamilton was also dead. However, Floyd Hamilton was not dead. He had just been nicked by a bullet.
Yep. I was like, no, just because he was grazed and disappeared. Like, if he was shot, he doesn't automatically sink.
Yes.
Like James Borman is the example. He was shot and was still floating.
So he had swum out to a rock about 100 yards offshore that's known as Little Alcatraz. And after catching his breath, he swam back to shore, mostly underwater to avoid the bullets, and then he hid in the same cave that Fred had been hiding in. But he managed to go unnoticed by the guards when they came in and, like, hauled Fred off. So Floyd hid in this cave for 3 days. He was only wearing his underwear at this point. The water was 58 degrees.
This is December.
Yeah. During high tide, the cave would fill almost completely up to the top. So he was like almost drowning every day. And he also said at night the crabs were extremely aggressive and like wouldn't let him sleep.
So why is he staying in this cave? Like, why is he not trying to...
I guess after the attempt that he made, he realized he wasn't going to be able to swim that far.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know if he was just trying to like bide his time and figure out something else. But after a couple days, he finally gave up and he just climbed back up and over the fence and went back in through the window the same way. Jeez. Which my question is, why did no one fix that window? But he came back in through the same window and they found him in a storeroom, huddled under a pile of rags. Because he also hasn't eaten anything or probably had anything to drink.
And no water. Which would be the worst thing.
Yeah, and it is probably borderline, like, on, you know...
Oh, look at all the... He got grazed by a bullet. Think of all the bacteria that's in his wound.
So, he had... Yeah. So, that was that escape attempt. Which brings us to May 2nd of 1946. This is our main event. So this is what...
Our main event of the prequel.
Yes, our main event of the prequel. So this is the Battle of Alcatraz.
I've heard of this, I think. I'm not... Like, I've heard of things regarded to Alcatraz, but I've never seen the movies about it or anything, and, like, it's just, like, little snippets that you hear every now and then that I know nothing about.
I tried to find a documentary about the Battle of Alcatraz, and I couldn't find one. I feel like there's a lot about the actual escape, and this is like several years before that, and it's so much more dramatic. I don't know. Okay, so I'm going to tell you our cast of characters. I'll also give you the map, but I'm just going to explain our characters first. Okay, so we have Bernard Coy. He is 46 at the time of... This is just at... Everyone's ages is going to be given at the time of this happening. So Bernie, as he was known, Coy, he was imprisoned, or he was doing 25 years for armed robbery, but he was considered a model inmate at Alcatraz. And this was definitely a choice on his part. This was a manipulative choice. He was a model inmate because he wanted...
I was about to say, I feel he looks like he's doing that to maybe potentially get, like, special treatment from guards.
Yeah.
Or to more or less kind of fly under the radar.
That's exactly what he was doing.
No, he looks like a thinker, a planner.
He was gaining trust. Then we have Joseph Dutch Kretzer. Dutch is his nickname. He was 35. He was serving 25 years for robbery and a life sentence for second-degree murder. He had attempted to escape before in 1941. Didn't go well. Didn't happen. He's the topic of my fun fact of the podcast. We're just going to pause for a second.
Okay.
Because it's not going to get any better than this. Because my next one is... Okay. Sorry, this has nothing to do with anything. All right. Kretzer was born to two parents who were both deaf and mute, but Joseph could hear and speak. Yes. His parents, or his father, sorry, both his parents were involved in, like, criminal activity. So, like, he was...
Interesting.
He got into it at a young age. His father joined a gang of, and this is, like, quoting, so I'm hoping I'm not, like, offending anyone, a gang of deaf mutes. So, like, a gang of people who were all hearing impaired or non-hearing. Which, I don't know how that's useful, but I guess it is.
Yeah.
So...
I mean, you know, no one's going to be able to snitch on anyone else. I mean, sure, you can sign or write. But...
Yeah. Anyways, so his father, like, is in and out of prison, whatever, not a great influence. But his father also, interestingly, invented an alarm clock for deaf people. Now, I was telling my dad about this, and my dad said, well, how did it work? And I said, that's a great question. let me look that up and see if I can figure it out. Because it's like, gotta be...
Is it lights or vibrations?
Well, so when I was in college, I actually had an alarm clock that was designed for hearing impaired people because I had a hard time waking up. And mine was a little vibrating thing that you stuck under your pillow. But I was like, this is gotta be turn of the century. What are they gonna do? Okay, so I'm looking it up. I found a YouTube video, so I was like, this has gotta be it. Okay, the YouTube video is a man explaining it in sign language, and there's no closed captions. I was like, that seems ironic, but okay. He's got a diagram behind him, and he's explaining everything. I cannot, unfortunately, read or understand sign language. And I'm looking at the diagram, and the diagram appears to show an alarm clock with a pulley system rigged to hold a pillow over someone's bed. And I was like, well, surely that's not it. Surely you're not just dropping a pillow on someone's head with an alarm clock. So I continued my Googling, and I found a newspaper article from 1905 or whatever. That's exactly what it was. It was a regular alarm clock that you like nailed to the wall, and you had a pulley system set up via a mousetrap. And when the alarm clock went off, the mousetrap went off, and the pulley system dropped a pillow onto your head, and that's what woke you up.
I don't think that would wake me up.
I don't think it would either. But Kretzer's father said that sometimes it would fall on his wife and wake her up, and then she would wake him up. But he never missed a day of work because of it.
A day of crime, you mean?
He also worked in like a mine of some kind. Okay. So, anyways, that's your fun fact about Dutch Kretzer. Is he's the son of a alarm clock inventor. Okay. Next we have Sam Shockley. Sam is I don't want to say he's my favorite. He's the one that I feel like got done the dirtiest. Okay, so Sam was 37.
He looks like it.
Yeah. Sam was serving a life sentence for robbery and kidnapping. He had been part of Kretzer's 1941 escape attempt. Sam had suffered several head injuries, like at an early age. From what I could tell reading back into his history, so as with most of these people, as with a lot of these guys, like a lot of the circumstances is of like, okay, let me back up. A lot of the, like you read of someone, they're convicted of armed robbery, and then you read their history and it's like, well, they were born into poverty and then they were working and then the depression hit, and so then they couldn't work anymore, and so then they turned to crime to support their families. Yeah. And then they got locked up, and then they tried to escape, because why wouldn't you try to escape? And then they got thrown into Alcatraz. And so, like, I'm not saying that's everyone's circumstances, but that is a lot of them. And then...
which is another reason why prison reform is an important thing. And
it's just like
rehabilitating, not just locking people away from society. And like then they're providing them zero support when they are released or if they're released. And like that's the people going to prison in the first place because of society and circumstances, and like, you know, the whole like pull yourself up by your bootstraps is such BS. Yeah. Because like there could be some kid out there who lives in the projects or something who could have, if he had all the support and everything, he might have the potential to cure cancer or something. Yeah. But if he doesn't have support or, you know, the opportunities or whatever, it doesn't matter how smart he is.
There's literally, some kids don't have bootstraps. They're literally born without them. Or they are born with them and then they are taken away by the government. Like, and then some kids are born with 12 bootstraps that they don't need. You know, like, it's, okay.
Automatic bootstraps that carry them around. Yeah. When they don't have to actually do anything.
That pull themselves up. Yeah. So, Sam was born into poverty. He was born likely with a family history of mental illnesses because he was, like, he's later diagnosed as schizophrenic, which I assume means he's probably born...
He does have some vacancy in his eyes.
With mental illnesses.
Like, he looks a little
Yeah. He gets involved in, like, petty crimes young. And by petty crimes, I mean, like, stealing chickens.
Yep.
So he gets put into prison very young. And in prison, he gets, like, beaten to shit and gets traumatic brain injuries. And then he gets out of prison and he gets arrested again and gets beaten to shit by police officers and gets more traumatic brain injuries. So by the time he gets to Alcatraz, analyzed by prison psychiatrists, he has an IQ of 68. He has a mental age of, I think it's 10 years and 10 months. So
he's kind of their fall guy.
He kind of comes into it by accident. So Bernard Coy is like the guy who plans it, and he handpicks a couple of these. Sam isn't one of them. Sam gets into it because he gets let out of his cell and says, "Can I come with you?" And they say, "Sure." I, like, read Sam's stuff, and I, like, could not stop thinking about him because he did get drawn into this, and then he got, like, severely punished for it. And I'm just like, justice for Sam. Anyways, he's also, like, at this point, like, documented as having hallucinations. He actually got recommended to be transferred to a medical facility for treatment because, like, that's what you do with inmates like this. Like, if they're committing crimes because of mental illnesses and, like, they don't, whatever. But instead, they're like, we're actually going to send him to Alcatraz because we think that the strict schedule is going to be good for him. And shocker to probably no one, it was actually worse for him, and he did worse there. So that's Sam. Okay, sorry, moving on. We have Clarence Joe Carnes. He is 19. Jeez. He is the youngest person ever to serve time in Alcatraz.
Sam also looks very young.
Sam does look really young.
He's got like a baby face.
Clarence Carnes, he was serving a life sentence for first-degree murder and kidnapping. He also had a history of escape attempts at previous prisons. I think well, I'm not going to say that. I think he was also handpicked. But also just so young. Gosh, I think he was put in there when he was 18. But just a life sentence at 18. Like, come on. Then we have Marvin Hubbard, who is 33.
No, that's not Marvin. That's Dermot Mulroney.
Is it?
Look at the smile.
Oh, dear. I thought that smile looked familiar. Wait, is that Dermot Mulroney or... Mm-hmm. Hold on, I can't think of the other one.
I know, I was trying to think of the other
one. Dylan McDermott or Dermot Mulroney?
Look at him. Like...
Yeah, that is very Dermot Mulroney.
The smile is identical. The face is so similar. Like,
yeah. Just gotta get that hair parted to the side with the flop. It's a good Dermot Mulroney.
I saw him and I'm like, he's cute. Wait, hold on. I know that face.
So Marvin Hubbard / Dermot Mulroney. He is 33. He was serving a 30-year sentence for kidnapping and theft. Again, kidnapping and theft. He had previously escaped from a county jail. Come on. County jail.
Well, who did he kidnap and for how long and, like, what was the situation?
Right? That's what I'm saying.
Because, like, I'm not making excuses or saying that, like, 30 years is too little or too much for kidnapping, but, like, there's different levels to things.
There are. Yeah.
So, like, and not... Unlike these pictures, the world is not black and white. And crime is not black and white. Again, true. I'm not defending any criminal here.
True.
I'm just saying that, like, it, you know.
Yeah, 30 years seems like a lot. Also, who hasn't escaped from county jail? I mean, come on.
Way to rub it in that I was never able to successfully escape. But fine.
I'm just saying.
I've also never been to county jail, so never mind.
County jail, it's not, state prison.
Guess it depends on the county.
It's true. Finally, we've got Mirren Thompson, who's 28. He looks the oldest of all of them.
He does. Well, he looks Bernie's age.
Yeah, he doesn't look 28, but it's a hard 28.
Poor Mirren.
He was serving a life sentence for kidnapping and first-degree murder, and he had just a long list of escape attempts from previous prisons. So, That's why he's there. Okay, so that's our
crew.
Our crew. All right. So feel free to do what I did, which is just stare at them as I go through the story. I constantly was looking back at this. All right. So Bernard Coy spent years planning an intricate escape that relied heavily on careful observances that he had made, one cleverly constructed tool, and the cooperation of several desperate men. Because everyone's just desperate to get out of here because it's a terrible place. Oh, also I forgot to mention something about Sam. Maybe I put it in here and I skipped over it because I'm just... He had... Did I put it in here? Oh, I did. I forgot. I did, and I just skipped right over it. So at this point, he's been at Alcatraz for 8 years. 5 of those years, he's spent in isolation.
Well, that doesn't help his issues at all.
You want to know why? Because the only work duty that he would do, I think, was in the kitchen. Like, that's the only one he would agree to do. Because of whatever mental illness you choose is the reason that he's, like, refusing to do any work duty other than going in the kitchen. And they saw that as him being, like, difficult and disagreeable, so they put him in isolation. For 5 years.
No wonder he's hallucinating.
I know! Well, no wonder when someone's like, hey, I'm going to open your cell door. Do you want to help us escape? He's like, yeah.
You don't need a high IQ for that.
God, like, just want to... It makes me so mad, this whole thing.
All right.
Okay. All right. So, Bernie's doing all of the planning. All right. So, just after 1:30 p.m. on May 2nd, Officer Ernie, I forgot to look up how to say his last name, Lageson.
Okay.
Ernie.
Ernie and Bernie.
Ernie and Bernie. So, Officer Lageson was leaving for his 30-minute lunch break. So, at this point, most of the inmates were on their work detail, and so the cell block was mostly empty. There's only 2 guards on duty.
Can I look at my map now?
Yes,
okay.
Yes. So, the 2 guards on duty are a guy named Officer William Miller and Officer Bert Birch. Stupid name, I know. So, Coy, who his work duty was, like, cleaning the floors in the cell block. He had observed that Officer Birch spent most of this 30-minute period that Officer Lageson was on lunch. Birch spent most of this time on D block, which D block is the isolation block. Birch spent most of that time on D block either reading, sometimes he would nap. He was just, like, usually kind of out of sight. So really, that just left Officer Miller to kind of patrol the rest of the block. So, Coy is doing his cleaning of the floors. So that's his job. So right after Lageson leaves for work, Marvin Hubbard,
For lunch.
For lunch, yeah, sorry. Marvin Hubbard, per a signal from Coy, came from the dining hall where he had been working and asked to be let into the cell house because he was done with work. And it was standard procedure. Miller had to let him in, and then he had to search him to make sure he wasn't bringing anything contraband into the cell block. So while Miller is patting down Hubbard, Coy comes up behind Miller and attacks him, basically. And between Coy and Hubbard, they render him unconscious. So they get him unconscious, and they lock him in an unused cell, which is cell 404, and they take his keys, his ring of keys, off of him. And then they immediately unlock the control box, which gave them access to levers that unlocked individual cells, and they release Kretzer, Thompson, and Carnes. So those were their, like, original groups. So then Coy used the keys to unlock a utility closet where he had hidden a device that he had gotten one of the inmates to make for him. And I should have printed out a picture of this because I had the hardest time imagining what this looked like. So essentially it was a bar spreader that he had made, or that he had made from a piece of pipe and a nut and a bolt it's maybe probably 2 pieces of pipe. I don't know. Essentially, what he was going to use it for was to put between 2 bars, and he would turn the thing, and it would spread the bars. Okay.
It's kind of like a, what's the word I want? Dang it.
Like a jack?
Yes.
Yeah.
But sideways.
Kind of. Yeah. Yeah. I don't know. If you're interested, anyone can just Google Alcatraz bar spreader. I don't know. Okay. So he's got this thing. Then I think he does this the opposite of how he should have done it. He strips down to his underwear, and then he covers himself in grease, and then he climbs up to the gun galley. I would have stripped down, climbed, and then covered myself in grease, because I can't.
I can't imagine climbing covered in grease.
Yeah, I can't.
And so this is Bernie doing this?
Yes, it's Bernie doing everything. So then he uses the bar spreader, because the gun galley is obviously, protected by bars. Mm-hmm. The bars are 5 inches apart. So he puts the spreader in there and he turns it, and he's able to get 1 inch on each side. So he's able to make an opening that's 7 inches. And he is measured and practiced to make sure that this is going to work. He's also been, quote, dieting for the last several months to make himself skinnier so that he can slip through these bars. He's gone from 165 pounds, which is already, I think, pretty small.
Yeah, depending on how tall he is.
To 140 pounds. And he is barely able to slide through a 7-inch, we should have kept the ruler around.
Yeah.
A 7-inch gap.
That's my weight.
Very small.
Yeah.
7 inches. Even for your head to get through 7 inches. Don't try that, anyone. 7 inches, but.
I'm getting the ruler. Yeah, I definitely would. I already know.
I feel like your head is much slimmer than mine.
Yeah, my head's very narrow.
Okay, yeah.
Mine was. Here, watch.
I feel like your head is 6 inches.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because you're hitting right at that middle mark.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So Katie would have no problem.
Mm-hmm.
We got boobies to worry about too.
I could probably I could smoosh him and.
Oh, yeah. He did say too, when he got through, he was cutting up his chest and everything. My boobs would not. I'm not getting through.
Now I want to find
a 7-inch
7-inch distance and try and squeeze through. Well, I guess that's why he covered it in grease before he climbed. He probably couldn't have climbed. Depending on how the grease is.
That's true.
He's already got to bring the bar spreader up, so.
Yeah, that's true. I don't know. All I know is that if my hands are the slightest bit sweaty, I can't hold on to jack shit. We have this stuff at Lyra called Grip that essentially makes your hands not slippery. I go through so much of that I can't. Sorry, that was Kelly. I can't. I would just. There's nothing. I can't. The slightest bit of perspiration and I'm falling off of anything, so. Okay. So anyways.
He's in the gun gallery.
He's in the gun gallery. So once in there, he grabs a billy club, which I'm assuming is just a regular club. And he tells everyone, so he tells Kretzer and Thompson and Carnes, who are also all loose with Hubbard. He's like, okay, everyone shut the fuck up for a minute, and we're just going to wait. And we are going to wait for Birch to come back. Because Birch is still, technically on duty. He's just, fucking around in D-Block. Reading magazines or something. So he waits with his little club. And he waits for Birch to come back. And when Birch comes back, he surprises him. Beats him with Billy Club. And they do kind of have a short struggle. Birch kind of reaches for his weapons. He's got a pistol and a rifle, but Coy manages to disarm him, incapacitate him by choking him with his own tie. And then once he's unconscious, Coy ties him up, and he just starts handing guns and ammo down to Kretzer, Hubbard, and Thompson. They now have Carnes, who's the baby, working as a lookout.
Mm-hmm. But also potentially between him and Thompson might be the most violent. I mean, they're the murderers.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah. Anyway.
True. Anyways, everyone is now armed.
Delightful.
Yeah. Like, as officers, like, kind of come into the situation, they just kind of force them to do what they want because now they're the armed ones. So this guy, Officer Cecil Corwin, kind of comes into that. Kreutzer and Hubbard then force him to open the door to the main cell house, and then they get Cecil to open all of the cells. So now all of the inmates are released.
Okay. So pandemonium, chaos.
Yes. Except not really, because some of the men are just like, what's really going on?
Like, why is my door open?
Yeah. So, like, some men come out, some men are like, hey, like, cool, what's going on? And then some men are just like...
Some are probably still out on their work detail.
Yeah,
some are probably in the yard,
yeah,
I imagine.
A lot of people are, like, still in their work detail. Mm-hmm. The men on D block are the ones in isolation, so, like, I don't think that they have work detail. Mm-hmm. So, like, they would be the ones getting released. They said some of them just looked around and then just, like, went back to their cells and were like, we don't want a part.
That would have been me.
Yeah. A lot of the inmates were like, we don't want to have a part in this because we don't want to get in trouble.
Yeah. Or, end up in a riot or
just
whatever.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, no, I would be like, I'm going to close this back. I'm going to go sit over here.
Yeah.
Might even take a nap through this or pretend to take a nap.
Yeah, exactly. But one of the inmates who did not do that and who was very enthusiastic about leaving his cell was Sam Shockley, because he hadn't really been able to interact with anyone for 5 years. So he came out, he asked Kreutzer if he could join them, and Kreutzer said, quote, "Sure, Sam, just stay out of the way and keep quiet. I'll tell you when we go." And Sam responded to that by grabbing a pipe wrench and then going through D block, smashing all of the plumbing fixtures. So Sam is just kind of chaotic energy.
Okay, yeah.
Which, whatever. Do your thing. I don't blame him for any of that.
Yeah, maybe he'll end up causing a bigger distraction. Anyway, be like,
I cannot blame anyone for how they're acting at this moment. So they grab another guard named Robert Bristow, and they throw him into cell 404 with Miller, who has since woken up from his stupor. Corwin is in there also. They've also, at this point, forced 2 inmates who have done what you did or said you would do and said, hey, I don't want anything to do with that. They've said, too bad, stay in here with them and keep an eye on them. And they were like, do we have to? And they were like, yes. So there's 2 inmates in with the hostage guards who are supposed to be, like, keeping an eye on them.
Yeah, I would also be at that point. I'm like, so I'm as much a hostage in this situation as you are. Please remember this when everything is settled. Yes. I'm not going to try and keep you in here. I'm just going to sit in this cell, not cause trouble.
Yeah.
And if you're going to escape, then you go for it. Like,
yeah.
You go do guard stuff. I'm going to sit here and be a model inmate. Thank you. Goodbye. And please close the cell on your way out.
The guys do eventually let those 2 inmates out. I'm not really sure why they were keeping them in there. So Coy, Kreutzer, and Thompson get all of the guards' keys from them. And they're looking specifically for key 107 because that is the key to the rec yard. Because their plan was they were going to exit through the rec yard using their hostages as human shields and or negotiating pieces. And then Coy was going to shoot the guard towers, or the tower guards, from the yard using a rifle that he had taken. And then he was going to climb up into the guard towers using a ladder from the kitchen. And then he was going to get the key that unlocked the yard wall gate, because that was kept in the guard towers. Then they would leave the yard, and then they would take civilian hostages because, like, personnel families lived on the island in apartments, which is kind of terrifying. And then they would use those hostages, like, I guess as negotiating or, like, kind of protection as they stole boat keys and then got off the island. So I think in their mind they're thinking the more hostages we have, the better. Civilian hostages are better than guard hostages. And then they had this whole plan of, they knew where all the keys were. And so they had this plan on how to get to them. So the first step was getting key 107 because that was
the yard.
To get to the yard. Okay, so they have all of the keys. They've taken all the keys off of all of the guards. And key 107 is not in them. And they can't figure out why. So usually, when the guards unlocked the rec yard door to let someone in, they had to pass key 107, like, from the gun gallery down, like, on a string or something. They'd, like, pass it down from one guard down to the other. He would unlock the door, let someone in, lock it back, and then pass it back up. So it always stayed in the gun gallery with, like, Birch or whoever was up there. But because Miller had been, like, letting a bunch of inmates in, and he knew he was going to be doing that, he knew he was going to have to be using that key a lot. Technically, this was against the rules, but he had not been sending it back up every time. He had just put it in his shirt pocket. So
there's our first hiccup.
Yeah. So it's not among those keys. So Lageson, our officer who had gone to lunch, he comes back from lunch around 2:10 p.m. and finds this lovely
chaos.
He is immediately also put into cell 404 with the other hostages. The men at this point, the inmates, feel pretty adequately in control at this point, so they untie the guards. They allow them to be untied inside their cell. Once untied, Miller, the original guard, pulls key 107 out of his shirt pocket because they did strip him of his clothes, but they left his clothes, like, on the floor. So he takes it out of his shirt pocket and he like, throws it under a bunk. And he tells, like, Bristow, like, one of the other guards, he's like, this is the key they're looking for. Ha ha ha. Tee-hee. Throw it under the bunk.
Throw it in the toilet or I thought you were going to say he swallowed it.
That would be good. They know that they're looking for this key, and they hide it. And just after they do that, the inmates move all of the hostages from the cell that they're in to cell 403, because cell 404 had a door that wouldn't lock. I don't know why.
Not a very good cell, then, is it?
It's really not. So soon after this, they add 3 more officers to their hostage.
It's getting crowded in there.
It is so crowded. One of these officers includes Captain Henry Weinhold. And by now, it's becoming pretty obvious to, like, the rest of the prison that a break is happening. And so the warden has been notified. And the warden was at home napping during this time. The guards who were aware of the situation, like the guards who were on duty who had not been captured, they were reluctant to sound the alarm for fear of alerting all of the other inmates who were, like, on work duty and out in the yard.
Yeah.
They didn't want to, like, let them know something was happening and make things worse.
Because then, yes, much chaos and riots. And
well, because there's only so many
overrun by. I mean, there's way more inmates than there are guards.
Exactly. Yeah. And, like, now that you know some of the inmates are armed and have guards as hostages. Exactly. So Coy and the guys, they're also now getting really frustrated that they can't find this key that they need. They've asked Miller where it is, and he is like, you have all the keys. It's got to be in there somewhere. It's probably up in the gallery somewhere. Like, I don't know. You took all the keys from us. Like, I don't know. And they believe him. They're like, yeah, you're right. We did take all the keys. It's got to be up there somewhere. since they couldn't find it, they were also trying all of the keys that they had in the one lock just to see if any of them would work. But that lock was designed in such a way that using the wrong key would cause the tumblers to become distorted, so that even if they had found the right key, they had like jammed the lock so bad that...
It's like when you enter the wrong code after a certain time, you get locked out.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So now Kretzer and Coy are both kind of getting a little
worried. Your plan is falling apart.
They're starting to kind of realize the plan is falling apart. Weinhold, who is that one of the last guards who was added to the group, he starts trying to talk Kretzer into surrendering because Kretzer's kind of guarding all of them. Coy briefly starts considering an alternate plan that he had kind of considered as like a plan B, which involved climbing through the skylight and getting to the towers that way. But before he could really do anything to start enacting that plan, a guard from somewhere else in the prison finally sounded the alarm siren. So like now there's absolute total chaos. And now everyone kind of knows the plan is over because everyone on the outside now knows that a prison escape is happening. And now it would be too risky because now if they were to leave the prison, they know that like everyone on the outside would be targeting them.
Yeah, everyone's looking for them.
Yeah, exactly. So it was now in this moment that they kind of decided, fine, we're going to go down fighting. Like, we're not going to just give up this plan, but we're going to go out fighting. So Coy, Hubbard, and Carnes all go into the kitchen and the bakery. And this is where Coy shoots out the windows, or like punches out the windows or whatever. And then he shoots out of the windows at the tower guards. And he thinks that he hits all three of them. What I think he did is, so he hit one. He didn't kill any of them. I think he just wounded one. I think he like shot at them and they like kind of dropped down and it looked like he hit them. But they're under the impression that they just killed all three tower guards. And so they're like, okay, good. Like, we're getting somewhere. Meanwhile, Weinhold is still like trying to negotiate with Kretzer, telling him he needs to surrender. He tells them that even if they were to get the yard door open, if they step out there, he said the first man to step out is the first man to die. So Kretzer's like probably just the most stressed he's ever been in his life. I'm like stressed out reading all of this. Meanwhile, Shockley and Thompson are both urging Kretzer to just kill the guards. And they're like, we can't have any witnesses. I mean, Thompson's saying we can't have any witnesses. Shockley is just like, kill everyone, whatever. And Kretzer eventually snaps and just starts shooting into the cells. And they now have 2 cells. There's like 9 officers that they have hostage. And he just starts shooting madly into the cells. So he shoots Weinhold. Corwin, he hits in the face. Miller is hit in the chest and the arm. He's just like shooting everywhere. As he starts walking away, Shockley says, someone's still alive in the cell. You didn't get this guy. And it's Ernie Lageson. Okay, so like the book I read was written by Lageson's son. And Lageson was, according to that book, was kind of known to be like friendly with the inmates. Like he was one of the guards that like treated the inmates with as much respect as the guards would.
Basically treated them more or less as human.
Yes. And especially like Lageson and Kretzer had a pretty good relationship. Like they would have like conversations that were, you know, like where he treated Kretzer as an equal, more or less. And so when Kretzer goes back And Shockley is saying, you missed one. You didn't kill everyone. Crutzer says, quote, that's Mr. Lageson. He's my friend. He's a good screw, and he's always treated me right. But then Thompson reminded him that regardless of whether he thought that he was friends with him, Lageson would still testify against him in court. Which is true. Mm-hmm. I mean, I don't know. I do feel so conflicted because sometimes I'm like, well, he's right. He is going to testify against you in court, so you probably should kill him. But then I'm like, well, no, you shouldn't have killed any of them. That's no. Sure. But also, he's not your friend. But also, you shouldn't be.
Also, old-timey slang is weird sometimes.
I know.
Good screw. That's not what that means anymore.
It's not. So, anyways, Crutzer aimed the gun at Lageson, and he said, quote, I'm really sorry about this. And then he pulled the trigger, but the clip was empty. So he reloaded it and shot at him.
Oh my God.
I know. So after this whole shootout, Sam Shockley returned to D Block. And when the sirens had sounded, most of the other inmates had gone back to their cells. They were like, fuck this. Nope, we're not. We want to make it absolutely clear, if it wasn't clear before, that we are not part of this. We weren't trying to escape. We were just the doors were open, so we were just kind of stretching our legs. So everyone in D Block has now and they're aware too that there's probably going to be something crazy happening with the guards, that something violent is going to be happening. So everyone in D Block is taking their mattresses and putting them up against their cells to protect themselves from guards, which I'm what does that tell you about the prison system? Anyways, so Sam goes back to his cell and he's I'm done with this part. And later, when it became apparent that this was no longer a plan where they would be leaving alive, Carnes and Thompson also returned to their cells and were we're not doing this anymore. But Coy, Crutzer, and Hubbard all decided that they were not going back to their cells. They were going to go down fighting, and they were going to take as many screws as they could with them. So meanwhile, Warden Johnston, so the same guy who
was at home napping,
and the same guy who incorrectly issued that statement about our
Floyd,
our 4 boys earlier. 4? 5. 4. So he issued a telegraph to 4 San Francisco papers, the Oakland papers, the wire services, and 6 major radio stations in the Bay Area concerning what was happening. And this is what the telegraph said. And I just want you to listen and give me some feedback, okay? Quote, serious trouble. Convict has machine gun in the cell house. Have issued a riot call and placed armed guards at strategic locations. Most of our officers are imprisoned in the cell house. I cannot tell the extent of the injuries suffered by our officers or the amount of damage done. We'll give you more information later in the day when we get control.
So first of all, why are you issuing this press release mid-confrontation?
Yeah.
I feel like if anything, they should be asking for some sort of backup from trained personnel.
Yeah.
Also, it seems a little bit of, not an exaggeration, but does he really have a machine gun?
He does not.
Even if he said everything really, all the way truthfully with no not necessarily embellishments, but not kind of playing up the drama, it paints the prison in a bad light.
Yeah.
Oh wow, there's really bad stuff happening here in the prison because it's not succeeding at its whole we're the inescapable prison thing.
Well, so yeah, you're correct. There was not a machine gun involved. And several, I think the assistant warden and a couple guards tried to get him not to put out this telegraph because they were there's not a machine gun. We have no evidence that they have a machine gun. Yeah. We were pretty sure they just have a rifle and some pistols.
And is it really most of the personnel?
No. And they said that too. They're like, no, there's like 10. There's 10. They had 9 hostages, and then Birch was still up in the gallery, just tied up. So he's just like kind of wildly releasing this chaos. And like, this is what like guards' families are getting. Like, this is how Lageson's family found out what was going on. Like, his son was a paper boy, and he just like delivered the paper like that day and saw this headline and was like, oh, cool, but probably my dad's not one of those, right? Probably, right? And then his mom tried to call over to the prison and like couldn't get anywhere, and they're like, but probably not dad, right? Probably, right?
God, I can imagine.
I know.
The son being the one, like, my son telling me, there's something going on in the prison. They're killing the guards.
Yeah. And I found out by...
Look at the paper.
Yeah. And so, obviously, this telegraph led to newspapers incorrectly reporting that inmates had control of the armory, which, I don't know if you noticed
it's like a game of telephone. It just gets progressively worse.
And I don't know if you noticed on that map, but, like, there is an armory that is...
on the other side.
Yeah, it's different than the gun gallery. It's not the same thing. So Warden Johnson did call the Coast Guard, the Army, the Navy, the San Francisco Police Department, and the Bureau of Prisons, as well as wardens at San Quentin and McNeil Island, Leavenworth, and Atlanta. So he got reinforcements from all of them. And apparently the general attitude of the officers at Alcatraz was that they didn't need all of the additional backup. They were pretty certain, like the guards were pretty certain, that the inmates only had a couple guns. They had limited ammunition.
It was only a few inmates at this point, too.
Yeah, they were like...
all of them. And it wasn't, like, mass pandemonium. There wasn't a riot.
Yeah, they're like, there's no prison-wide riot.
Most prisoners are actually just kind of, like, either chilling or on work detail.
Yeah.
Or just not involved.
Yeah, and so, like, the guards wanted to handle it themselves. And the warden was like, no, we need the Navy in here. We need the Marines.
No, I think if anything, you might need some backup from, like, some police officer or something, just so you have, like, in case a riot does break out, you've got more... guards against prisoners. And if anything, the Coast Guard to kind of just circle the island, keep an eye out, make sure nobody actually does get out.
Yeah.
That seems reasonable, right?
Yeah. Well, at 6:00 p.m., the Marines show up. And they surrounded the rec yard, which, by the way, is still full of inmates. Like, at this point, inmates are still either at their work detail or in the rec yard. Like, they have not been let back into their cells, like their regular cells.
Because the lock is busted now.
Yeah, I know, they can't. So the Marines show up, and they begin an assault on the cell block. They start shooting hundreds of rounds into it. They start throwing gas grenades. And all of this is virtually ineffective due to, like, the angles at which they're throwing them. So just wasting energy and ammunition.
And also in the wrong area. If they're throwing it in the cell house, our guys are, some of our guys are back in their cells at this point. But the guys that are still fighting, they're in the kitchen, last I heard.
Yeah, and they also have, like, free reign of wherever they want to go. So, like, they can, if the assault is happening near the gun gallery, they can just, run over to the other end. So, whatever. At 7:00, the guards, like, the officers were allowed to, like, mount their own attack. So, they go in through the gun gallery, and they just start shooting with machine guns. And obviously the inmates start shooting back at them, and this is just like absolute chaos. So this is a quote from the book. Quote, 2 guards at a time stepped into the doorway and sprayed machine gun fire into D block. When their guns were empty, they were replaced by 2 more gunners. So they were just like going in, shooting and leaving.
Until they were out.
Yeah.
And then...
Officers outside also continued to fire into D Block, just like blindly. So bullets are like ricocheting everywhere.
Who all is in D Block at this point? Because I know this is the solitary confinement area.
Yeah, and
So, like, is it still some inmates who have been locked in solitary?
I think so. It's very confusing. That's just why I printed the map.
Last I heard, the guys were, Bernie and Hubbard and Kretzer were in the kitchen.
I think they've come back from the kitchen.
Okay.
Because the gun gallery is here. So that's where the guards are coming in. Mm-hmm. And D Block is here. So they've got to be shooting this way. I don't really know. Who knows? I don't know. But bullets are flying everywhere. Several guards get hit by, like, possibly friendly fire.
Ricocheting bullets.
Yeah. And I know at least one guard dies from this. Like, gets hit by friendly fire and dies. So, like, this plan was just fucking ridiculous. Because none of the inmates are harmed by this. But mind you, the inmates who are just, like, hunkering down in their cells are like, what the fuck is happening? Like, we didn't do anything.
I stayed put.
Didn't do anything.
I mean, after all the crimes, I didn't do anything just now.
Yeah, didn't do any of the other things.
Except, although, while we're on the topic, I'm totally innocent of my other things, too.
Yes. Around 11 o'clock p.m., another assault is launched by the guards. This one is more of a rescue mission.
Meanwhile, there's still inmates out in the rec yard.
Yeah.
Right?
Yep.
And I'd be pissed. I'd be
I know.
You guys made me miss dinner.
I know.
Like, it's not even good food, but I'm hungry.
Yeah. So they have 10 officers who are heavily armed. They go into the cell blocks. They've turned all the lights off, I guess, to protect them. And Coy, Kretzer, and Hubbard have retreated to the utility corridor at this point. So the rescue team is able to get to cells 402 and 403, where remarkably, all of the hostages have survived being shot. So, like, Kretzer shot out all of the cells. They all survived. Lageson thinks that Kretzer intentionally aimed slightly to the side because he got hit, like, grazed in the face. Mm-hmm. They're all alive. Some of them are severely wounded.
Well, you said somebody got shot in the chest.
Yeah. They've all just been playing dead for hours because the guys have been sending people back to, like, check on them. Like, they would periodically send someone back to be like, make sure they're still dead, make sure they're still dead, make sure no one's, like, moving, and basically make sure no one's faking dead. So they're able to get everyone out. The seriously injured are taken to, like, hospitals. And those who hadn't been seriously injured, like Lageson, they just join the efforts. They're just like, I'm fine. We'll fix my face later and, like, we'll keep going. Although, like, truly at this point, I'd be like, can we just let them go? Like, what are they gonna do? Like, come on, can we just give them a boat and, like, put an alert out on and make this San Francisco police's problem? Like, this is too many people are getting hurt. What are we trying to keep them here for? Come on, just let them go. We'll send them to another prison.
I mean, the Marines are still here, right?
God, I know. Like, come on.
Let them help.
Why are you trying to incarcerate these people so badly? Why do you need to? That's going to come back to bite me, I'm sure. But it's just so much effort to control. Okay, so throughout the rest of the night and into the early morning hours, the Marines just threw grenades into the cell block because now their plan, and they have said this, the plan is now just to kill Coy, Kretzer, and Hubbard. They've said, we might destroy your jail, but we're going to kill them. We promise you, we're going to kill them.
I imagine all these grenades are also damaging the integrity of the inescapable prison, right?
Yeah. So the next morning, they finally move all of the inmates, like, back inside. They get moved to A and C block, and they finally feed them. Officer Miller was one of the wounded who's taken to the hospital.
He got shot in the chest, right? I
think so.
I think that's what you said.
He actually wasn't considered to be one of the more critically wounded, so he wasn't treated immediately. And because of that, he died of his wounds. So, I know. So he dies.
It's a chest wound.
I know. Well, one guy got shot in the head or the face, I think.
Yeah, but I'm not saying that there weren't other people that seemed more critical. I'm saying that that's still a pretty critical wound.
It's very critical. I agree. So the Marines continue throwing grenades at where they think the guys are. This time they have them on strings so that they can control where they are and where they detonate. They have them like on strings and then they have the pins on strings. I don't really know. Here's the fun thing that happens. The sewer and the water lines rupture from the explosives.
Gross.
Yeah. Coy, Kretzer, and Hubbard have retreated into a tunnel under the floor at this point. Fun that there's a tunnel just in this jail. So that's happening all day on the 3rd. And then on the 4th, so the night of the 3rd is like relatively quiet. They're not hearing a lot. There's no firing from either side. And then on the morning of May 4th, 3 officers enter the cell block, and there, underneath the floor, they find Coy, Kretzer, and Hubbard all dead. They've all been shot. And they're all still holding their weapons. So, their bodies are all removed, and it's not clear if the guards, like, that had been taken hostage just told immediately who had been involved. I know that Lageson at one point found a pencil and wrote on the wall the names of the inmates who were involved and then like circled the ringleaders' names. But after they got the bodies of Coy, Kretzer, and Hubbard out, they went and got Shockley, Carnes, and Thompson out of their cells.
Who were just sitting there like,
who were just hanging out.
I didn't do anything. I had nothing to do with this. Nope.
And they searched them and interrogated them without lawyers, obviously, and
because rights.
I read that they were also, like beaten while they were being searched. And like this is also the part like in the book where they were just like fucking awful to all of the inmates. Were like after they had everything under control, it's like they went and into D block and like forced all of the inmates to like strip and searched all of their cells, and then like they were just awful to and it's just like, okay, I get it, you're back in control, we got it, you're fucking mad, but also did you not see this coming? Like if you're gonna treat humans like literal garbage for the entirety of the time that you have them here, like I don't know, I'm so fucking mad about it. So in all, 2 guards were killed. There was Miller, and then there was one who was killed by friendly fire during the attack, and 16 guards were injured. Shockley, Carnes, and Thompson were all charged with first-degree murder in Miller's death because I don't know. I don't feel like they should have been because I don't know. I don't feel like that was a correct charge.
I mean, they were all accessories. Like, they were part of this plan. They put Miller in that cell. And, like, yes, while they didn't pull the trigger, they were...
Yeah, true.
They were still involved in it.
Yeah.
And, like, that's not to say that even if they hadn't played their part that they did, that Miller wouldn't have still died. But, yeah, no, I think that's how, like, accessories, too, works.
Yeah.
And also, like, they can't punish the guy who pulled the trigger.
Yeah, they can't punish Kretzer.
So they have to punish somebody.
Although, isn't first degree, like, with, like, planning or isn't that, like, premeditated? And I would think second degree would, I don't know.
So, second degree is I'm committing a bank robbery and I shoot somebody, but that's not the intended crime.
See, that's what I would think that this would be, is like
we're trying to escape, but
this person got killed in the process. Yeah. And it wasn't our intention.
Originally, the intention was just subdue because they tied him up.
Yeah. anyways, they get charged with first-degree murder. They are all found guilty. Shockley's lawyer tried to argue, I guess, insanity. I would assume
incompetent to stand trial.
Yeah.
Mentally unfit.
I would assume all of those things, and it didn't work.
They're just looking to punish somebody.
Yeah.
Or multiple people.
Carnes was given an additional life sentence because of his young age and because of testimony that he had refrained from following orders given to him to kill the guards. But Shockley and Thomas were both sentenced to death, and they were both executed by the gas chamber on December 3rd, 1948. Which just makes me so mad. I don't know. I'm really here to just be mad about Sam Shockley, who just wasn't given a fucking chance from the time he was born.
Yeah, no, it sounds like he probably definitely should not have been, like, fit to stand trial. I mean, he shouldn't have been in that prison in the first place.
No, he should have. No, he shouldn't have been in any prison ever. He should have been in an institution at some point. I mean, God willing, he should have been born in at a time when his mental illnesses could have been diagnosed and treated and not given subsequent brain trauma. And I'm so mad about it. It's it's a whole thing.
But I am gonna play devil's advocate for a second and think, with the whole, like, charging these other three guys as, the accomplices, think about Miller's family. Like, think about how pissed they are, and like the whole, like, justice is blind thing, or like, everything in life again is not black and white. It's lots of shades and variations and whatnot. And, like, while again I agree that, like, Shockley, that should have been different for him, but they didn't. That's not how, unfortunately, society worked at that time. But, like, I can imagine the victims' families just being like, they're already prisoners. Like, there's already that negative stigma of them being prisoners. That's why, prisoners are often treated as less than human and whatnot. Like, there's that Stanford prison experiment. That, like, the students turned on all of their other students. They weren't actual prisoners, but just in this, like, make-believe
like a power
scenario.
dynamic.
So, like, they were their fellow classmates who they'd never had a problem before were all of a sudden seen as less than. And so then if you put, emotions and grief and, like, oh, my loved one is dead because of these people, like, they all should just be dead too, you know? Like, that's just the human emotion reaction.
No, I get it for sure. And there's so many complexities to it, and, like, I mean, one of the things that came out of this was I was telling Jarek, I was like, I want to do something, I want to, like, I don't know, research further into, like the whole, just the idea of, like, what happens when, like what I said, of, like, well, what did you expect to happen of when you mistreat this group of people for so long? And I'm like, I don't really know what, I don't know what form that is going to take, whether it's, like, a bonus episode or, like, just a fucking paper that I write for myself. but like, I don't know. It's like, to me, I'm like, this seems like it followed a very logical, everything that happened to me seems logical from not logical in that it was right that it happened, but
I
the decisions, I'm like,
it followed an expected pattern kind of a
thing. And I don't know. I just, but it also made me so mad. It's just, I don't know.
Well, then you've also got to look, though, too, at, yes, they're people, but they are also criminals. And their minds and their brains think differently, or they have different moral compass than you do. And so the whole them trying to escape thing, I don't have a fully formed thought. It's like there.
We do that a lot on this podcast, where we just kind of say it as it's forming in our heads.
And again, I'm not trying to say that, criminals are less than or deserve
Yeah.
any kind of poor treatment or whatever. But, like, them wanting to escape, like, that also makes sense. Like, nobody wants to be in prison.
Yeah.
So, I don't know. I don't remember where I was going with that.
I don't know.
Basically, there's a flip side to it. I'm not saying that they deserve any kind of poor treatment, but they, and I'm not saying, I don't know. I don't know how to say this without it sounding terrible. Like, they had it coming kind of a thing.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. I get what you're saying, because when I'm sitting here saying, you know, like, oh, just let him go at this point, you know, like, I get why they can't do that. I understand why you can't just let the convicted criminals leave the prison and get to the mainland and potentially endanger other people. I understand why you can't do that. I'm glad that it's not my job to make that decision, because at that point in the story, I would absolutely be saying, just whatever, just let him go. Like, just give him the damn key. And
well, I mean, if you've got the Marines outside, you've already called the Navy and the Coast Guard too, and you're on an island, yeah, let them out. Like, they're endangering people inside. Let them out and then scoop them up outside.
Yeah, true. That probably would have been easier to do. But yeah, but at the same point, I think my frustration is, like, at some point,
or say, hey, let's stop shot firing. You guys want out? We're gonna let you out, and then, like, let them outside into a trap that you've set up.
Yes. I think at some point it's just like the overcompensation of punishment at some point.
Well, it's, you hit me, so I'm gonna hit you back harder. It's
Yeah.
all of the inmates that weren't involved in this that you said afterward, once the guards were back in control, were then stripped and searched and, you know, treated inhumanely. And it's because guards were overcorrecting and, like, lashing out. Like, oh, you came after me and mine? Well, you're guilty by association.
Yeah.
You already are literally guilty for crimes.
Yeah.
We're just going to add this to your list, and it's going to be another reason to hate you, look down on you, treat you poorly.
Exactly. And and that's not what prison is supposed to be. Prison literally is supposed to be rehabilitation.
And I mean, not, and that's why, meanwhile, too, these other prisoners who have done literally nothing and then are getting punished for, you know, someone else's crime, some other problem, it doesn't make them want to abide by the rules or follow the laws, because even though they were doing what they were supposed to, they didn't do anything wrong. They still got punished for it. So why bother?
Yeah.
Why do the right thing?
Yeah, exactly. Well, and I think the mindset of a lot of the guys, too, was like, well, I'm in here for life anyways. I'm going to die here anyways. Why wouldn't I go ahead and try to escape? And especially, you know, like, once they realized that it wasn't going to happen, it was like, well, I'm going to be here for life anyways. They're probably going to get me on murder charges now anyways.
They either might give me the death penalty, or even if I don't die, they're going to make my life, the rest of my life, a living hell.
Yeah.
Death is better than
the punishment. I might as well give it my all, and either maybe I get out or maybe I die trying. Like, what? I don't know. That's a whole other thing. But anyways, 16 years later, another daring escape attempt would take place at Alcatraz, and it would have very different results.
We'll talk about that next week.
Yes, if you want to hear about that, you gotta come back next week, and hopefully we'll be a little less angry.
And in the meantime, you can study the map and layout of Alcatraz, so you're ready for next week.
Familiar.
Yeah. That map and all the other fabulous mugshots will be on our Facebook and Instagram. Search The Tales We Tell Podcast. If you want to see the photos but don't do the social media, check out our website, thetaleswetellpodcast.com. And if you want to support us and get yourself some sweet, sweet swag, go to our Redbubble store, search The Tales We Tell. And if you want to support us but you don't need the stuff except, I don't know, maybe some potential future bonus content. There's a backlog of bonus content, commercial-free listening, early access, sometimes some stickers and love notes. You can become patrons at patreon.com. Search The Tales We Tell.
Yep. And yeah, I don't know if I'm going to be able to post every single one of those pictures. I hope I am. They were a pain in the ass to find. But I'll post as many as I can. Definitely go look at those. I'm going to print some of them out and frame them. I don't know what else to do. I'm obsessed with them. And definitely come back next week because I cannot wait for that episode. It's going to be so good. And we'll see you guys then.
Bye. Oh, wait, no, that's right. It's
sorry.
Critter Goodbye now.
Bye.